Hey, shalom, shalom. Anakna waha bar yasha Allah walakim la'atam call shabawai barucha wakak shoya bashma shah. Hey, we the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shah to pursue so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners repent, yea, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Call halayim la, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Rcha, Kodash, Wamashanaka Badim Zukoyim, Na Wamalakim Shoya Shah, Allah Zakoyim Rcha, Gadawal, Wachasa, Washalam, Wabarakim, Labachaya Shah, Gawai Shah, Shalom. All right, so all praise to the Most High Yahweh, which means He exists. Bahashem in the name Yahweh Shah, He delivers. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Israel, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and mercy, peace, and blessings to the elect of the nation of Israel, Shalom, which means peace. All right, so I just want to go into the topic of anti-Shum because that's been a hot topic in prophecy in the last couple weeks. All right, and I'm going to start with the definition. So it says anti-Shum. It says hostility to or prejudice against through people. All right, and that's referring to those that are in the Holy Land currently. All right, the Khazars. They aren't the true people of the Lord, but nevertheless they are Shemitic. All right, and I just wanted to go into what this meant. So it says anti-Shum is hostility to prejudice towards or discrimination against Jews. A person who holds such positions is called an anti-Shum. Anti-Shemitism is considered to be a form of racism. Anti-Shemitism may be manifested in many ways, ranging from expression of hatred or discrimination against individual Druze to organized pogroms by mobs, police forces, or even military attacks on entire Druze communities. Although the term did not come into common usage until the 19th century, it is also applied to previous and later anti-Druze incidents. Notable instances of persecution include the Rhineland massacres preceding the First Crusade in 1096, the Edict of Expulsion from England in 1290, 1348 to 1351, persecution of the Jews during the Black Death, the massacres of Spanish Jews in 1391, the persecutions of the Spanish Inquisition, the expulsion from Spain in 1492, and specifically with the expulsion from Spain that wasn't going into the expulsion from Spain is going into the Moors, because the Moors actually was in that land. The Moors, they actually conquered a lot of the land, and like if you go into the different names in like Northern Africa, such as like Mauritania, Morocco, Nigeria, and various different other places along in Africa, starting from the north part, they actually contain like names that the Moors was going off of. So like blackamoor, that's where that term comes from. Blackamoor, it means black or dark skin. So that's where you get Niger, which means black. All right, Nigeria, same thing. Morocco, the base word in that is Moor. Mauritania is the same thing. You know, that was all founded by Jakes. All right, and then you go into like Spain and like if I'm not mistaken, Portugal as well. But a lot of that was the Moors. All right, so those was the true Jews. All right, it was Jake. All right, and it wasn't a coincidence that in 1492, Christopher Colombo, he he came over here to the Americas. All right, but that's a side note. But it says, I'm gonna skip down. Though historically most manifestations of anti-Shum have taken place in Christian Europe since the early 20th century, anti-Shum has increased in the Middle East. The word Shemite gives the false impression that anti-Shemitism is directed against all Shemitic people, including Arabs, Assyrians, Arameans. The compound word anti-Semitismus which is anti-Shemitism, was used in print in Germany 1879 as a scientific sounding term, Judenhass, which is Jew hatred, and this has been its common use since then. All right, but they're misusing that word because when you go into the etymology of the word, it says characteristic attributes of Shemitic languages, characteristic attributes of Shemitic people, especially the ways, life, practices of Jewish people. See Shemite and ism. So it says by 1870, in the specialized sense of Jewish influence in a society, however, a Shemitist was one versed in Shemitic languages. All right, and Shemitic means that you come from. Let's get it. It says Shemite, a Jew, a Arab, a Syrian, a Aramean. It says refers to the Shemitic language group, back formation from Shemitic, or else from French Shemite. All right, it says modern Latin Shemita, from late Latin Shem or Sem, Greek Sem, and it says Shem, one of Noah's 3 sons. All right, so it's talking about those that derive from that line of Shem. All right, so let's get some precepts, because the definition is basically prejudice and discrimination to those. They apply, the Jewish people over there in the Holy Land apply it to themselves. You see, they are Shemitic, but they are not the true people of the Lord. All right, Shemitic goes into all those deriving from Shem, which that's a lot of nations. All right. So we're going to start at, this is Barashiath, also Genesis chapter 5, verse 32. All right, so again, the definition is hostility and prejudice towards or discrimination against Jews. But you see, that term applies to all Shemitic peoples. All right, to include, but not limited to, Jews, Assyrians, Arameans, like that list went into. You see, but the true anti-Shemitism, you see, is the persecution, or not persecution, but discrimination and oppression that Jake has went through in these here in America, Babylon the Great. All right, but we're gonna get into it, Lord's will, in this lesson. This is Genesis 5 and 32. And Noah was 500 years old. That's a lot. And Noah was 500 years old and begot Shem, Chum, and Japheth. All right. Those are the names in the Hebrew. But Shem, we can go to his name. It says, the eldest son of Noah and the progenitor of the Shemitic tribes. Shem, a son of Noah, often including his posterity, and your posterity goes into your lineage. So those deriving from him. All right. Those will be the Shemites, those that come from Shem. All right, and we're going to go to who came from Shem. This is Barashiath, also Genesis 10 and verse 22. It says, the children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur are Faxad and Lud and Aram. All right. So Elam is the progenitor of the so-called East Indians. It says a son of Shem and his descendants with their country. All right, and again, technically Elam would be Shemitic. All right. It says Ashur are Faxad, Lud, and Aram. All right, Aram is technically Shemitic. So it's not just that definition singled out. It said the so-called Jews, but it's not just the so-called Jews. You see that they applying that term to themselves. The Khazars, they're applying that to themselves. But you see, when it's applied to us, That's true anti-Shemitism, you see. But the term Shemite or anti-Shemitic, you see, Shemitic refers to those that derives from Shem. You see, they just using it as a play on words because people don't go into words. All right. So it says Aram, and he was the progenitor of the Arameans, and they're technically Shemites. All right, going to Genesis 10 and 21. That's like I was already there. Oh no. 10 and 21. It says, unto Sham also, the father of all the children of Ibar, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born. All right, so Sham was the father of Ibar. All right, and that was the line went from Sham to Ibar. All right, and it passed down all the way to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the righteous line, you see. But again, those that derive from Shem, they will be considered Shemites. Esau is a Shemite. He's not the righteous line, but he is technically a Shemite. All right. All right, we went to verse 22. So I wanted to get I got the definition of prejudice right here. It says a preconceived judgment or opinion. Preconceived judgment or opinion, an adverse opinion or leaning form without just grounds or before sufficient knowledge. All right, so some examples of this, various different parts of history. You had the Central Park Five. Those kids, they, it was proven, or it's like it wasn't proven, but they basically persecuted them without enough evidence. You see, just because that they was Jake, you see, they ended up charging them. All right, and then also like hangers of Jake back in like 1900s. A lot of times they'd be like, an Edomite woman was raped or something like that, and they just blame it on Jake. You see, just because he's Jake. All right, that's prejudice right there. All right, we have various different accounts of that in history. All right, but moving on, this is Genesis 10 and 31. It says, these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations and their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So all the sons of Shem, they all had families and they all had their respective language. All right, coming from the Shemitic language, which was the Lashon Kodash. It says, I'm reading again. It says, these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations and their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. All right, so again, Shem had sons had families. They all had their respective languages, and they had lands and nations born unto them. All right, but nevertheless, they all was Shemites. All right. This is Barashith, chapter 27, verse 41. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother Jacob. All right, so Esau uses this anti-Shem word to play victim and get attention on himself and hide the fact that he's ultimately just killing Jake. You see, but then playing the victim so nobody is looking at him, you see, for being the devil that he is. All right, he's capitalizing on people's ignorance and unwillingness to read. All right, by using that anti-Shemitic, you see, because it's not Semitic, it's Shemitic. All right, but it wouldn't be on him. You see, he'll use that term when people call him out for his bullshit. You see, but when Jake getting shot in the streets, he won't label it that. He'll just say, oh, another so-called black man was killed. And that's just playing into his story again, and he's just using it to his advantage. You see, but it's not going to come into fruition. It's not going to benefit him in the long run, because the Lord is going to take this man's kingdom from him. All right, and this devil's being exposed through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Al-Shah. All right, this is Jeremiah, also Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse 10. It says, But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he should not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. All right, so the so-called white man is being made bare. He's no longer able to hide behind that deception of, oh, well, no, that's anti-Shamitism, shit like that, man. You can't hide behind it no more because the facts is being brought out. All right, through the Spirit, the prophets, the men of the Lord. Sorry, where our head elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and those are likewise doctrine, are bringing out the truth. All right, and then going into these words and breaking it down so that it's plain and it's clear for the believers to see and for the world to see. You see, so this man is being exposed. He can't hide himself. All right. Saibadya, also Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 9. It says, "And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter." All right. And this includes Amalek in the Hebrew. All right. Wakal Adawamyam. All right. And all Edomites. You see, all the tribes of Edom. All right. They're going to be cut off by slaughter. They're going to be nuked, and some going to be saved for captivity. They're going to be rounded up. After their 1,000 years of slavery, they're going to be cut off and burned up and destroyed. You see, it ain't no mercy. It ain't no peace for the wicked, man. You fucking Amalekites is going to be destroyed. You see. It's Awayab, Ayawab, Salak. Also Job chapter 9 and verse 24. It says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?" All right, so Esau has the power to do anything that he wants, so to speak. All right, and that's because the Lord gave the earth into his hands. You see, for a certain particular time. You see, but this devil has bounds to where he can't pass. You see, and the Lord's taking that power from him. You see, but being that he does have that power, currently, he's taking advantage of the play on words. You see, he's real deceptive in how he talks. All right, and he takes advantage of people unwillingness to read. All right, so he like Psalm says, Psalm 55 and verse 21. It says, "The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords." I'm going to get this in another version. It says, well, no, it's cool. Read again, though. It says, "The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords." You see, and just going into the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. That goes into how this devil speaks with a forked tongue. He's very deceptive and cunning and crafty with how he talks. He know if he throws out a big word, a lot of people not going to do their due diligence and go and read what it actually says. They're just going to go with it. You see, they're just going to go with it. So it's going to help to play into his plans. It says, "But war was in his heart." And he know by doing that he going to get the attention on himself. You see, and those that come up against him, you see, then they're the enemy, and everybody going to be against him. You see. But, the men of the Lord have nothing to worry about, because in the end, this devil is going to be taken out of that power, man. And he's going to be shown for the devil that he is. All right, it says, "But war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil." You see, trying to act as if he trying to humble himself, appear as if he's not violent. But this devil's truly a violent motherfucker, man. He was given that sword. It says, "Yet were they drawn swords." They always use the sword. You see, he knows what he's doing by doing a play on words and then putting all these articles out. You see, because it's a war. It's a spiritual war, which is going to manifest into a physical. You see, the Lord going to put the spirit on Esau on the left-hand side to go ahead and, make a move, because that's this devil's strong suit. Throughout history, he's always been able to capitalize on using slick-ass words, being very deceptive, and then coming down with that sword. That's Esau trick. He's a one-trick pony. That's his playbook. This is because this is true anti-Shamitism right here. This is the Holium chapter 83 and verse 1. It says, "Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones, who are the Israelites. All right, that crafty counsel goes into the anti-Shemitism, man. You know, we can keep going. It says, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. All right, and the elect is remembering themselves in his captivity. You see, but 2/3 they don't even want to consider, because that word remembrance also goes into to consider, like Isaiah chapter 1 goes into. You see, so this devil has done so good of a job on the left hand side. You see that the overwhelming majority of Israel don't even want to consider that they are the people of the Lord. You see, so 2/3 is going to be destroyed on this side. You see, but Esau going to pay for that. You know, for his anti-Shemitism against the nation of Yasha'Allah. You see, it says, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. All right, and list the nations. All right, starting with Edom all the way down to the rest of the heathen. All right, and the chief head of Edom is Amalek. All right, and the Lord, you know, he said that he would have war with Amalek from generation to generation. You see, so Esau, you're gonna pay for you know, for true anti-Shemitism. You see, because you're guilty of this. All right, this is Jeremiah chapter 12 and verse 9. It says, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird, the birds round about her, which the birds represent the other nations. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. Mine heritage is Yasha'Allah, Israel. Speckled bird, because the nation of Israel comes looking like the other nations. So we come in all different colors, you see, because we were scattered. The birds round about her, the birds round about are against her. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field, come to devour. All right, and that's what happened. You see, we were destroyed. We were devoured as a nation. All right, that's true hatred and discrimination against those that derive or come from Shem. All right, and again, there is many nations that have came out of Shem. All right, but who was the most discriminated and oppressed? Jake, the nation of Israel. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indies, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. All right. This is Yeshaya, also Isaiah, chapter 51. And verse 23, it says, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee, which have said to thy soul, bow down that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground, and as the street to them that went over. I'm reading verse 22. Thus saith thy Lord, the Lord, and thy God, that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee, being other nations, which have said to thy soul, bow down that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground, and as the street to them that went over. All right, so going to the definition of anti-Shem, it included discrimination and prejudice. All right, and we've been discriminated and shown prejudice against the most, all right, amongst those that are considered Shemites. All right, we see this. Let me get a couple precepts, but we see this in different different parts of the scriptures. All right, I'm gonna get First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 10. It says, what nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten? So what nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? You see, and all these nations had a part of our spoils. You see, all these nations devoured and destroyed us in confederation with Esau, Edom. You see, they all used us, but chiefly Esau, Edom. But you see, they all used us to benefit their enterprise. You see, that's why when you go back up to verse 22, in this it said that thus saith thy Lord, the Lord, and thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee. You see, so these nations is going to get what we got. You see, the curse is going to be put on them, and they can go through slavery. All right. And I got a couple more. This is Judas chapter 5 and verse 17. It says, And whilst they sin not before their power, they prospered, because the God that hated iniquity was with them. You see, so when we didn't go off, when we wasn't sinning, when we wasn't breaking the law, statutes, and commandments, we prospered. We was put up on high, or above these other nations. But when they departed from the way which was appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles, very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their power was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by enemies. Going into those spoils mentioned in 1 Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, in the 10th verse. It says, but now are they returned to their power, which we're returning now. You know, Lord's will we endure. You see, the elect is going to endure. All right, and Lord's will we be those men. It says, but now they are returned to their power, the elect is returning, and are come up from the places where they were scattered, because the nation of Yasha was scattered, man. They're not in the Holy Land right now. It says, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in the hill country, for it was desolate. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their power, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. All right, so these nations know that when we go off, that the Lord isn't with us. You see, so what do? They know this is Jake's kryptonite, so they place a whole bunch of stumbling blocks, so to speak, of sin, and they glorify and they make it look good, because they know Jake likes to see things. All right, so that's an example of how they keep us at that lower state, and they benefit off us being low and using us to get them higher. It says, but if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them and their God before them, and we become a reproach before all the world. And that's what we're heading up into, man. So Esau is going to be punished for his true anti-Shamitism, you see, because he's the one, and the rest of these nations that's showing anti-Shamitism to Jake, you see. But Lord's will of Zedephon, Kahalai Mla, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Kragdash. A double honor to the elders and apostle, great millstone, that told me the truth and rule well. And much respect to you brothers out there, person is truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom.